Good to be here tonight, guys. I appreciate everybody coming out. My name is Ryan Emrich. I'm going to be talking to you guys tonight about the FHA 203K loan, which if you've never heard of this is an owner-occupied loan product that allows you to get in, buy a property, and rehab it all with one low down payment loan option, as little as 3.5% down. Just to set the pace, the tone for this evening, my plan for tonight is to briefly talk about myself, my little journey as a real estate investor. Then I'm going to jump in to talk about the loan product, the FHA 203K loan, how it works, core people you're going to need on the team to successfully use the loan product. And then I'm going to jump into an example of a project I did in Medford, Massachusetts. At any point, if you guys have questions, please raise a hand or just say you have a question because I'm here for you guys tonight. I want to provide as much value as possible. The slide's kind of just to guide us, but I'm happy to go off-roading if we need to. And then the only other thing I'll say is I'm going to mention names of key people, the kind of core team I'm saying that you guys will need to successfully use the loan product. If you don't catch the names at the end of the presentation, I have slides with all their contact information. So if you don't catch a name, I will definitely get that to you by the end of the presentation. So again, my name is Ryan Emrich. I'm a real estate investor. Prior to investing in real estate, I was working in public accounting. I got my CPA license, worked at a tech company, and around 2018, I was kind of having a quarter-life crisis. I was like, how am I going to become a millionaire, a multimillionaire, working in public accounting? I saw a path, but it just felt like it was going to take a long time. I felt like it was going to take 60, 70, 80 hours a week working for someone else. And even then, I don't even know that you necessarily guaranteed to become a millionaire in working in accounting. And so I started looking at my options, and real estate seemed like the next best step forward. And so in 2019, I decided to buy my first triple-decker, an owner-occupied property out in Worcester, Massachusetts, and I used the regular FHA loan for that. So just 3.5% down, no renovations included in that. And I was fortunate enough that after a couple of years, I had some substantial equity in that property. And that allowed me to then start scaling my portfolio. I used a home equity line of credit to tap into that equity, and I had to make a decision. And the decision I decided was that moving forward, I only wanted to buy properties where I could implement a value add strategy, meaning I could go in and do something to increase the value of that property and not just rely on natural market appreciation to kind of boost the value of the property over time. And so with owner-occupied properties, single-family homes, 2 to 4 units, that's generally going to be by doing renovations, hence where the 203K product comes in tonight. Also, another way to do it in commercial real estate, which this encompasses a lot of asset classes like mobile home parks, warehouses, strip malls. For residential multifamily, commercial residential multifamily, that's typically going to be buildings that are 5 or more units. And I realized that if I buy a building, stabilize the property, increase the rents, make it more profitable, I can boost the value of the property that way. And so in 2022, I established Blue Canyon Equity Partners with my now business partners, John Marchese and Matt Davis. And we set out with the mission to seek out lucrative real estate investment opportunities. We underwrite them, we do thorough due diligence, and then we raise money from investors in our network, friends, family, people that we meet at networking events like this. And we tackle those projects, we implement our business plan, and then we split the cash flows and the profits with investors. And so last year, 2023, John had already alluded to this, John Mombachi already alluded to this, we tackled the 65 plus unit portfolio in New Bedford, Massachusetts, which we found off market, partnered with Millennium Holding Group to get that done and raise $1.8 million from investors to do that. And then this year in 2024, my core Blue Canyon team, me, myself, Matt, and John, we've got a 20 unit building under line there. And we're also starting to get into other projects like flips. And I also do a little wholesaling with my sister, Lauren, who's here tonight. Wholesaling, if you don't know what that is, it's when you get a property under contract, usually with some value add proposition, and you go sell it to another investor. The investor buys it off of you, and you can make a commission. You wouldn't really call it a commission, you call it a wholesale fee, a signer's fee, a finder's fee, but you can do that without a real estate license. So it's a really great way to start making money in real estate if you don't have a lot of money up front. You can go find good deals, and then you can go present it to another investor, and that investor can partner with you on it, or they could just buy the deal off of you and pay you a commission. So that's a little bit about me. It's time to get into the 203K. So as I mentioned, the FHA 203K is a loan product that allows homeowners to buy and then finance the rehab of a property all in one loan product. You can do this with a new property. You can also do this with a property you already own. You can technically refinance into an FHA 203K loan to do renovations. And you can do kind of almost anything you can imagine. There's some restrictions, but the typical things like renovating kitchens, bathrooms, flooring, roofs, siding, windows, you can all do these things with this loan product. Something interesting that I actually learned recently is that you can use this loan product to convert a single family home to a duplex or a 3-family or 4-family, so long as you can do it by right, so long as you already have permission from the building department to do it. Otherwise, the bank's not going to provide the loan if there's a gamble as to whether or not you can actually execute on that. So it's a great way to create value in a property. It's a great way to start building your equity and your net worth in a property. Now with the 203K loan, just a level set here. So there's a regular FHA loan that has 3.5% down. You can't do any rehabs with it. But then there's this 203K version, and under the 203K version, under this umbrella, there's two versions. There's the limited and there's the standard. With the limited, you can finance smaller projects. When it's non-structural repairs, minor renovations, things that are going to come out to $35,000 or less. But as soon as you get into major renovations, as soon as you start doing major structural repairs, as soon as you start getting into a territory where it's going to be more than $35,000 of work, you now have to use what's the standard version. And with that comes a little bit more administrative work and the hiring of somebody that you're going to have as part of your team, which is the FHA HUD consultant. And they're going to be there to kind of hold your hand through the creating of the scope of work for the project and through getting contractor bids. I'm going to talk a little bit more about the HUD consultant on future slides, so I'm not going to get too much into it on this one. But a couple times so far I've said now that there's a few people that you're going to want on your core team to successfully use this loan product. And these are the 5 that I've identified. I thought long and hard about this, and I think these are the core 5 you need. So I'm going to start by saying all of these, and then we'll jump into them a little bit. So the first is a lender. Second's probably going to be a real estate agent if you're going out looking for properties. The HUD consultant if you're doing the standard version where you're going to do major renovations. A contractor that's familiar with the 203K loan, and then a real estate attorney to help close the transaction. So with the lender, key here is you want a lender that has experience closing on 203K loans. There is administrative work, there are problems that come up, and you need somebody that's capable of troubleshooting those problems. I have used personally and highly recommend Joe Galvin with Guaranteed Rate. He is fantastic. I think he's probably done hundreds of these loans. I don't know where Joe is right now, but I'm pretty sure he's hundreds. Is that accurate? Hundreds of these loans. He knows how to troubleshoot these problems, and in fact, he's so good at it. Sometimes he'll even work with people, other ones in this team. Like he'll work with your real estate attorney, maybe behind the scenes, to help move the property forward and the underwriting forward. Next up is going to be a real estate agent. So the real estate agent is really going to help you make a case when you go to use this loan product. Sometimes, this is, in my experience, this is just the reality of seller agents and listing agents sometimes do not want to take offers, or they're hesitant to take offers from buyers with an FHA loan. FHA loans, the regular ones, are known for being a little problematic with getting through the appraisal process because they're nitpicky. They'll look at things like chipping paint, or if things aren't perfect, they might cause a problem for the seller. But with the FHA 203K loan, that's not really an issue because you're going to be using the loan to help fix those things. You're going to be using a rehab loan to assist with those things as you find them. And so a good real estate agent can not only help you find these multis, the ones that are kind of the fixer-uppers, the ones that need some work, but they can also make a case to the selling agent that you're a qualified buyer. You're going to hopefully get a pre-approval from your lender before you start looking around for properties, and now your real estate agent can kind of promote you as a qualified buyer, saying, hey, my client has a renovation loan, they're capable of closing on this. And you can start competing with investors, flippers, who might be also kind of trying to come in with all cash. You might be able to pay a little bit more than them and use a loan product like this. Next up, HUD Consult. Oh, by the real estate agents, highly recommend Candor. Candor, this is already shout out. So talk to Sabrina Sanchez after this. She's the lead for Lowell, and she can, or John Bombachi, and they can get you arranged with a real estate agent if you need one.
Who'd you use?
I didn't use a real estate agent, actually.
How'd that work out?
Good. Yeah. I found an off-market property in Medford that I'm going to get into later, and I did not have a real estate agent. The seller had a real estate agent, but I did not. I found it off-market. Sorry. I didn't know of you guys yet at this point, I don't think so. HUD consultant, as I mentioned, so this is going to be, I'm going to tell you, by the way, the steps where these people come in. The HUD consultant is going to, I say, hold your hand through the renovation process, through the bidding process. They're going to help you if you don't have experience renovating a property. It can be a little daunting, it can be scary. And so they're going to come in and they're going to help you get your bearings, they're going to help create a scope of work, they're going to tell you, how to get the contractor quotes, and they're going to give you kind of a baseline for pricing when it comes to bringing in the contractor. And I'll get a little bit more into that on the next slide. Contractor, We already talked about simplified development tonight, earlier this evening. I think John brought them up or Sabrina brought them up. You want a contractor that's familiar with the 203K loan, and this is actually very important. I think this is probably one of the most important things to say on this slide. The contractor is going to have some administrative work to do associated with this loan, and it's going to be very difficult for you to just choose any contractor and to successfully execute on this loan. You want somebody who is familiar using the 203K loan, and there's a key thing here. Normally when you hire a contractor, they ask for a deposit up front, and with the standard version of the 203K, the bank is not fronting a deposit. So a contractor needs to have the operating reserves to be able to start the project. And that's a big thing there, because that's something you're not typically going to see with a lot of contractors. They're not necessarily going to be comfortable with that. Simplified Development is who I highly recommend for a contractor. I happen to use a company called Build Simple, Ryan Walkworth Build Simple, and I have their contact information in a couple more slides. And then real estate attorney. Law offices is Douglas M. Mercurio out of North Reading. Very good attorney, again, great at troubleshooting, and he goes to bat for his clients. Any questions at this point? Any questions? In the back, yes, sir. Yes, you with the hat, sorry. So if a project, first off, the contractor is supposed to stick to the budget. So there's going to be a scope of work that's created, and the contractor is going to apply amounts to that budget, and they're going to give you a quote. And they are supposed to be executing on what's in the scope of work based off of that budget. If it goes over budget because they start opening up walls and there's things that are problematic, or you start changing scope of work, you technically do have a contingency reserve that you can dip into. If it becomes a situation where your contractor doesn't fulfill the contract, then you're probably going to have to potentially fire the contractor. That would be the situation there. And I don't know if Joe Galvin in the back wants to add anything to that, if you've ever had a situation where the contractor just said F you to the client and wanted to go rogue with the budget.
So regarding the budget, the contractor prepares it, the HUD consultant reviews it, the underwriter reviews it, to follow so that he knows what he's bidding, right? And there can be a discrepancy between a solid wood door and a hard door or things like that. But to Ryan's point, if you start opening up walls or there was unintended expenses, the minimum contingency reserve is 10%. The most you can get as a contingency reserve is 20%. So you figure, say a $100,000 job, you can have between 10 and 20 extra. But they have to follow the laws of the Commonwealth or New Hampshire, whatever the state they're in. So contractors have to provide a change order, right? When something happens, you got to provide a change order, right? And it's going to be approved, right? You can't just do the work and just get the bill after. You got to get the bill first, send it to the bank. The bank approves the work 9 times out of 10, and then you do the work, and they get paid at the end. They don't get paid for the change order until the very end.
Okay, thanks. Keep that microphone back there. Switch it off, and you may come in handy a little later. All right, so I told you guys the core 5 people. I've thrown out some people you're going to want on the team, but one of the things I struggled with when I was using this loan product is what order do I use any of these people in? It was, do I bring the contractor in before I make an offer, or do I make an offer not even knowing what my budget's going to be, and then I bring in a contractor? So this is what I put together tonight using actually some help from HUD's website, because this is kind of one of the recommended steps that they provide, and I added a little clarity to it. So I wanted to provide you guys with kind of a step-by-step guide. So first you want to get pre-approved by a lender and get a basis, an idea of what you're going to be able to qualify for. Also, did we answer your question fully in the back?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. And did anybody else have questions? I just want to make sure. Yeah, John.
Talking about the contingency.
Yeah.
If you have 10 or 20 or whatever percent, if you don't use the whole amount, what happens? Does it go back to the bank, or are you still paying interest on it?
Yeah, no, you don't draw on it. So if you don't use the contingency, you don't draw on it. It never ends up in the final loan amount, and your mortgage payments are adjusted based off of that. Okay, step-by-step guide to using the FHA loan. So get pre-approved, find a lender that's specialized in the 203K loan. Find a real estate agent, go find your deal, and you're going to make an offer. I would say at this point, just use your best guess as to how much work needs to be done, but realistically, you're not going to know. Next, I would say the next best thing to do is your offer gets accepted. If you're going to do a home inspection, get the inspector in there, get your inspection report, do that within a couple days, because the next thing you're going to do is bring the HUD consultant into the property. And if there's anything from the inspection report that you may want to address when you create the scope of work, you're not going to know unless you've done the inspection first. So now you're going to walk through with the HUD consultant. I recommend Phil Murphy, by the way, and I have his information on a different slide. You're gonna tell him kind of what you want to do to the property, and I actually recommend telling him a budget you might have in your mind, because Phil can give you some feedback as to if the renovations you're saying you want to do are realistically in line with the budget that you have. You're not gonna gut a three-family for a budget of $100,000. That's not realistic. So he can give you kind of some feedback and clarity there. Phil's gonna go back to his office and he's gonna create a scope of work in his software, and he's gonna go through, based off all of his experience, all the estimates that he's done for all the projects he's done, he's gonna put a dollar amount next to each item in that scope of work to give you an idea of where your budget's gonna fall. So you might go through and you went through the property with them, you told him you want to do kitchens and bathrooms and whatever you wanted to do, and maybe he tells you it's gonna be $100,000. This would be a good time to maybe touch base with your lender, who could be Joe Galvin, and say, hey, this is what my purchase price is. This is what I think the rehab's gonna come out to. Do the numbers look good? Does this sound like it's gonna pencil out with underwriting? Joe can give you some feedback. If it's a yes, now you're good to bring your contractors in. Again, I recommend using contractors that are familiar with the 203K loan. Bring them in. They're now going to go into Phil's software after they do a walkthrough with you, and they're gonna put their numbers next to the scope of work, within the scope of work. So now you'll be in a position where you'll have Phil's scope of work, the HUD consultant's scope of work, Phil's or the HUD consultant's budget, and then your contractor bids. And now you can compare line item by line item if there's any discrepancies. If Phil told you, the HUD consultant told you it should be $5,000 for electrical and it's $25,000 for the contractor, you know that's something you need to look into. But once you have something that looks good, you find a contractor that gave you a budget that looks good, you're good to move forward. And so at that point, Joe will order the appraisal, or whatever lender you're using will order the appraisal. And hopefully, it's gonna be different for everybody, but for me in Medford, my goal was that I wanted the appraisal amount to be significantly more, materially more than my purchase price and my rehab. Because I wanted to build equity doing this. I wanted to boost my net worth. I really wanted to do something where I was adding value to the property. And so I think my initial appraisal came out showing that I'd have like $125,000 of equity or something like that. And if that's good, then you're good to go. You're good to continue with underwriting and close the property. Yes, you.
How does HUD come up with their numbers? I mean, today's time with the material difference, you go to Lowell, you go to Home Depot, how do they have their?
So the HUD consultant has experience. He's gonna have done this recently. He'll have put up quotes, or he'll have seen other contractors quote on his other scope of works with other clients recently. So he has an updated database that he can kind of reference and say, okay, and he's giving an estimate here, but he's saying, okay, you're gonna renovate, do new flooring in this room, it's gonna be about $5,000. And so he's just using data points from what he's done recently. It's not gonna be to the T, because he's not the contractor, he's not actually bidding it out, but he's giving somebody who probably has no experience with renovations or very little experience some basis to work off of. And that's kind of the hand-holding part of it. Any other questions? Yes, you right there.
Yeah, two things. So you said that you would have a contingency for 10 or to 20%. If it passed that, would you put up out of pocket? And second question, you have a scope of work with your HUD consultant. Would you let your contractor go blind on what the price they're gonna give, or would you give it to them and be like, hey, this is my budget, don't go over?
I would recommend that you don't show I'm going to start there, the contractor, the amounts that Phil or the HUD consultant gave you. Let them blindly try to do it. If you're using a contractor like Simplified Development, or my contractor that I use, Ryan Walker, I trust these guys, so I think you could do that in that situation. But they're also going to be thinking like an investor's thinking. So they're going to be able to give you budget-friendly options with more of a premium look. They know you're going to try to maximize market rents, but you're trying to do things for an affordable price. The risk is if you use a contractor that's not used to working with investors, they may come in with a bunch of premium materials, and it'll totally throw off your budget. I don't know if you have any input on if you think you should tell your contractor your budget ahead of time or what. But
The only difference to this that I would kind of recommend, and maybe you encountered it, but I would say when you have your HUD consultant out there, get a contractor out there with the HUD consultant at the same time. And it doesn't mean you have to award the contractor that goes the job, but it's someone else that can kind of ask questions of the HUD consultant and make sure that they're talking the same language. Because I don't know if you encountered any scope differences between what Phil thought and what the contractor thought. And sometimes if they can figure it out early, it works. And then I'd say when you're talking to a contractor, like lie a little bit to set expectations. Where if your budget's 150, tell them, hey, I'm really trying to keep it at 125, and just kind of like prep them with what you are expecting. Don't share everything, but you don't want them to come back to a budget of 250 and say, is this good? Like, we just wasted a whole lot of time quoting two different types of jobs, like, cue them into like, hey, we're trying to keep it between 100 and 125, we're trying to keep it under 135, like, kind of give them rough numbers, but don't give them everything, because obviously you wanna protect yourself. It's just, I've seen so many people say like, oh, I'm not gonna tell the contractor anything, and they got a budget of 100, and the contractor comes back with a bid of 300,000, I'm like, we just wasted everybody's time by not sharing any information.
Thanks.
With
That's
the
great.
20%, would you put out of pocket if it's a contractor you will really want to do the job?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure if you go over the budget and you've used the whole contingency, then you'd have to come out of pocket at that point.
So you would, you could.
You could go. You said could you go over budget? Is it?
You would, yeah.
I mean, would I do it? Well, I'm going to tell you on the next slides. I actually did go over budget, but I did that voluntarily, and I paid for it out of pocket, and it made sense for me. Did anybody else have questions while we're on this slide or these topics? Yes.
So I noticed in one of your previous slides, you spoke to ADUs.
Yeah.
So I'm in that situation with my own home. The town approves ADUs
Mm-hmm.
up to various 900 square feet, I think is the maximum.
Yep.
And I am seriously considering doing that before I sell the property, before I live.
Sure.
So
So you want to add an accessory dwelling unit, an ADU,
yes.
which is essentially a separate unit you're adding onto your property.
Say yes, but I mean maybe.
Maybe. Yeah, you could use the 203K loan to do this. I mean, this is on HUD's website, so I trust it. You can use the 203K loan to add an ADU to your property, but you need to have permission from the town already to do that. So you have to go into the project with those permits ready.
Well, if you meet the criteria, it's by right. They have.
Yeah, correct. Yeah. Is that right, Joe? Joe Galvin, if you wanted to add units or an ADU, you just need permits ahead of time or approval from the city.
Yeah, the town has to approve it before you can be budgeted for it.
Yep.
You wouldn't be allowed to close without approval from the town.
Yeah, okay, so you need approval from the local municipality to do it. But yeah, you could use this loan to do that, this loan product. All right, so I just want to quickly talk about, guys, my project in Medford. So this is what I actually ended up using this loan product on in 2022. I bought a 3-family that was very decently distressed. It was pretty vacant. The seller was living in one of the units and he was ready to move out, but the other units were vacant. And so I went in and I did updates, all new kitchens, all new bathrooms, refinished floors, took down some walls to make it open living concept between the living room and the kitchens, and all new HVAC systems, stuff like that. I was trying to go for a more premium feel, knowing that it was in Medford. It probably would be young professionals that'd be living in there, and so I wanted a kind of, not necessarily condo quality, but pretty close to condo quality. And so my initial budget on this, and it's okay if you can't see these numbers, I'm just going to glimpse over this. My initial budget was $150,000, but I didn't have in that appliances, and I didn't have in that actually the HVAC stuff. I didn't do an inspection. I didn't have an HVAC person come through. I had 3 heating systems. I had 4 AC condensers outside. I just assumed most of them were working. That wasn't the case. Luckily, I was able to have Mass Save come through the property, and I qualified for a 0% heat loan, so I could get a $25,000 loan at 0%, and I could take care of those things. So I technically went over budget, though, $25,000, because I didn't account for that. And there were some closing costs that increased right before before closing. I had to pay some points to get the interest rate down to get it to a point where I qualified based off of my income, and so that actually boosted my closing costs by about $15,000 or $20,000. So all in all, I did go over budget by like $88,000. Yeah. Now luckily I was able to. It is an ouch. Luckily I had a few months to kind of cover that with some income, and yeah, go ahead and take a photo of slight failure. But my goal here, as I mentioned, guys, was I wanted 6 figures of equity. So even though I did go over budget, all the things that I did boosted the value of the property more. Something I had to do, for example, that I don't think we could have planned for it. The city decided after I closed on the property and we pulled the permits, they're like, we want you to upgrade the water line, the diameter of the water line coming from the street into the property. And that came into like $6,000 or $7,000 to do that. I was already super tight on money at this point. And I said, listen, I'm tight on cash, so I really need to do this. And they said, okay, we'll give you a deferral for 1 year. But then, once the property was renovated, tenants were moving in, and they were like, the water pressure sucks, it's shit. And I said, sorry for cussing. And so I had to go to this, I had to fix it, I had to deal with it. There was nothing I could do at that point. So they forced my hand. I ended up didn't even use the 1-year deferral. I just went in and I did the renovation, or I did the fix to the water line. But I ultimately ended up with 6 figures of equity. I boosted the value of the property even more so with the overruns. And now, this was in 2022, now I have multiple 6 figures of equity. I'd say now this property is probably worth 1.35 to 1.4. And so I would say I've got 200,000. My goal here was to have a property that if I moved out, it would cash flow, and that after doing the work, I'd have 6 figures of equity. That was kind of my goal going into this, and I feel that I did accomplish that for sure. The other thing is I knew living in Medford, there's good appreciation, there's always good demand. It's a $1 million asset, so if you're talking 5% appreciation a year, that's $50,000 of net worth build minimum each year. Yeah.
So what side of Medford are you on, 90, of 90?
I'm east of 93, right along the Fellsway near Malden. Yeah, behind Target actually. Surrey Street, 145 Surrey Street if you want to look it
They're
up.
really different neighborhoods.
They're different neighborhoods. There's different neighborhoods in Medford. Yeah, certainly like by Tufts University, even more premium pricing. I would have paid more to do it, but the construction costs would have been the same, but my purchase price probably would have been higher. Any other questions? All right, and I'm just going to quickly run through these things because I don't want to take up too much of you guys' time, but these are just before and after photos. Kitchens, I went in, threw in an island, stainless steel appliances, new white cabinets, subway tile, backsplash. Or young professionals, they'd want the space. I just paid for the premium vanities. This is the after photo. That's a before photo. I ended up just doing a lighter colored paint throughout the house, light gray or kind of a lightish blue, white trim. And then something I always recommend when you're doing unit turns, it's not photoed in this, but I replaced all the outlets and the switches and the plates with fresh white ones. It just gives a crisp look. It's low cost to do that too. Again, it's not photoed here, but trust me, I did it. And the garage. This guy, the seller, loved doing illegal units. He at one point tried to put an illegal unit in the basement. He tried to put an illegal unit in this garage. The city, he had multiple complaints from the city. I'm like, don't worry, I'm going to fix all this, guys. Tell the city. So I converted this back to a 3-car garage because I was like, why wouldn't I? I put a new roof on it, and this actually surprisingly wasn't that expensive. I thought, doing a garage was going to be like 20 or 30K, but it was. I think we only spent like 10K putting on new garage doors, doing new soffits, new roof on there, maybe not even that much. I was actually surprised at how affordable it was to kind of fix that up. All right, resources. I told you guys that I was going to give you guys contact information for resources. So if you guys need contractors, these are 2 I highly recommend. Simplified Development and Build Simple. And they're both very experienced with 203K loans. There's also a sister product, the 5% conventional home style loan. They're very similar in how they be used, and these would both be great contractors as well for those products. So take a photo of that if you want the information. Next, lender, Joe Galvin with Guaranteed Rate. As he said, he's done hundreds. And he does everything. VA loans, 5% conventional, regular conventional. HUD consultant, Phil Murphy. This is his contact info. Highly recommend using him. Real estate attorney, law offices of Douglas M. Mercurio.
That's an old photo.
If you look up this guy, he's got no photos online, and his best photo was on Redfin, but it was like 200 pixels or like whatever, the resolution was insanely low. So I went with this one. There's not a lot of, I guess I could have gone to his Facebook, but who knows what you're going to find on there. And then a couple other projects I'm doing. So I was bummed out my sister didn't raise her hand when John had asked what people are up to. So I actually found another property in Malden, off market, 3-family, direct from seller. Got it under contract. It's huge. It's like 4,300 square feet. And so I left my W-2 job a couple years ago, a year and a half ago. So I don't have the tax returns built up to kind of qualify for these loans as easily. So I'm having my sister Lauren and my other sister Julie use their W-2 incomes to buy this property for themselves, Joe, for themselves. And and they're closing on this. So they have a budget of 150. They're converting the layout from all 3-bed units to 4-bed units. They're doing light cosmetic updates in all the units, opening up the kitchens and the living and the dining room, knocking down the wall to make that open concept area. So we're super happy about this. I think it's going to provide my sisters, a couple $100K of equity when the property's done, and I'm kind of helping them. I'm like their brother HUD consultant that's helping them through the process. So we did have to hire actual HUD consultant, but I'm there to help them with it. And then because I've got this renovation experience now with the 203K, I've done multiple unit turns in multifamily properties. I've got a contractor who's one of my business partners. Blue Canyon, me and my investment partners, we're now going after flips and stuff like that. So we're closing next week on a flip in Maynard that we're very excited about. The appraisal came back much higher than we expected, and demand right now for single-family homes in the area is high because there's not a lot of inventory. All right, that wraps it up. So guys, if you want to get in contact with me, John was making a joke about my social media stuff. I've been posting a lot more real estate content. So if you want to find me on social media, you can find me on Instagram and TikTok at Ryan R. Emrich. You can kind of mostly see it there. My Blue Canyon team also has a newsletter that we've been publishing monthly. It's very short. We're very respectful of your time. We put a couple project updates in there, a couple noteworthy real estate news articles, and then we'll also tell you guys how you can potentially collaborate with us on deals. So if you're interested in signing up for the newsletter, you can scan this QR code, and then you could visit www.bluecanyonep like equitypartners.com, and at the bottom of the website you can sign up for the newsletter there. John's signing up.
Well, I'm signing up. I'm not sure if I'm already on. So, how long did the 203K take versus how long did you expect it to take?
Okay, 203K. How long did it take versus how long did I expect it to take? I expected it to take 3 months. I did not wrap any of my mortgage payments into the loan, which you can do. So I was paying for those out of pocket. Actually, I think I expected it to take 2 months. It ended up taking 3 months, and then I ended up having issues with the water, I said, and some HVAC issues. So while there were tenants there, I actually had to still do some work. Luckily, they didn't get too mad. I think they could have caused problems for me, but it didn't end up being an issue. So it did take a bit longer than I expected. My contractors, some of their subcontractors bailed on them or didn't stick to the original quote that they had provided, and so they jumped ship. And also, as I said, I was paying for those mortgage payments, which was like $5,900 a month. After that first month went by, I was paying for those out of pocket, so that kind of dipped into the carrying costs. Jeff.
I want to compliment you. I've heard you speak elsewhere on the New Bedford project, and you're an incredible presenter, so great job.
And you're an incredible cost segregator as well. We use Jeff for all of our cost segregation studies. So.
Well, I'm going to compliment you because I am an investor in the New Bedford project, and it's worked very well, so thank you for that. And I can see now why it's worked so well because I didn't know about all this background you have, and I didn't realize you were a CPA as well. So congrats and great job.
Thank you, Jeff. It's like having my father here. I appreciate it. Thank you for the praise.
I hope I'm not that old. But anyway, that's great. And so thank you for all you're doing for everybody.
Thank you, Jeff. I appreciate it. Yeah, the New Bedford project is going great, and huge thanks to John Bambachi as well, Millennium Holding Group, because they've helped us get that through the finish line and implement a great business plan there. Any other questions?
After you renovated those units in the Medford house, what did they rent out for?
Above what I thought they were going to rent out for. So I was budgeting they were going to rent for $3,100. I got them up to $3,300 each. So $3,300. And then the top floor, live there for the requirement. You have to intend to live in the property for 1 year. Intend. It actually says intend. So, I mean, you can really probably, I got depressed. I had to move out after 3 weeks. But Joe's not laughing. Joe, that was mostly for you, Joe. So, there you go. And then the third floor, my sister, she was formerly a nurse, so she helped me get some travel nurses in there. We did a medium-term rental. She helped me furnish it, and I was getting $3,000 for a furnished 1-bedroom. So thank you, Lauren, for helping me with that. And yeah, so I was getting like over $9,000 a month. It was just a little shy of the 1% rule, but in Medford, I'm still cash flowing a couple of thousand a month there. I'm happy with it, And again, appreciating the asset. Still own it. Why, are you looking to buy something off market?
Not in Medford.
Before we get to you, sorry, there's one gentleman in the back that had his hand up first. Let me go.
So for the 203K loan, say if you were depending on those rents that come in to help with the mortgage.
Yeah.
I would consider going through the renovation and then where you were depending on those rents for loan payments.
Can you just repeat that one more time? I'm going to come a little closer. I couldn't hear all that.
So for the 203K loan, say if you were depending on those rents for the loan payment. So how would that look like, say, if you're doing the renovation and then you're not getting those rents coming in?
Yeah, then you got to pay the mortgage out of pocket. So if you don't wrap in mortgage payments as part of the renovation timeline, so what you can do is if you know the project's going to take 3 months, you can say, okay, Joe, the project's going to take 3 months. Can you please include 3 months of mortgage payments wrapped into the loan amount so that you don't have to pay those out of pocket while the renovations are happening? But if it takes longer than expected, then you're coming out of pocket with that stuff. So you're gonna, you have to pay it, or I guess you're gonna start getting foreclosed on.
For the one in Maynard that you showed.
Yeah.
It was off market.
That wasn't off market, yeah. My business partner, John Marchese, has a property diagonal to it. He did a 2-family condo conversion on it, and they had to sell. Somebody passed away, and the selling agent saw my business partner.
So the question is, don't look at me, Sabrina, but did you use an agent for that because of the 203K, or you cut it?
So I didn't use the 203K on this one, the Maynard one. This is just, I'm using actually a hard money lender on this one. It's kind of more of a conventional loan. So they're going to finance, we put down 15% and the lender.
So was it a 203K or no?
No, this one is not. I was just saying that I used, from my 203K experience, I used a more traditional investor-oriented loan product, a rehab loan product for Maynard. This one down here in Malden, this is the one my sisters are using a 203K on. Or maybe it's going to be 5% conventional. I don't know. We keep ping-ponging back and forth between what we're going to use, but we'll figure it out.
So the Maynard was a probate?
Maynard was, I don't know if it was technically probate. There's 3 siblings, and they want to sell the property. I don't think it had to go through probate necessarily for this one. And it's a hoarder living in it. There's so much junk. If you guys follow me on social media, I'm going to be posting about this at Ryan R. Emrich. I'm going to post about this one. I'm probably actually going to have a meetup at this property at some point to walk through the scope of the renovations and talk about the numbers. I just think it'd be a great way to network. It'll mostly likely be summertime by that point. Maybe we'll get a grill out and throw some hot dogs and burgers on there or something. But it'll be a great way to learn if you guys have never done flips or renovations before. So there's a hoarder that's in there. So it's disgusting. There's so much clothes. We think we're going to have to go through huge dumpsters just to clear it out. 5 huge dumpsters just to clear. John Marchese, my business partner, walks in. How are we doing? We're talking about Maynard right now. Yeah. Any other questions? Steve Rubino, you got a question for me? No? Not yet? Zach Gray too? Wow. Look at this. Oh, yeah.
How long is the midterm rental for the traveling nurse?
It's usually a 3-month minimum. They usually get 3-month contracts, but it can vary. And a lot of times they want to extend if they're getting paid well. So there's more vacancy, but it's much higher rent. I think if at first I thought I was going to get $2,000 a month there.
Yeah. But there's high demand on that?
There's very decent demand in Medford, yeah. And it's a very good looking unit. It's newly renovated and Lauren did a great job furnishing it, so it's got a good touch. Any other questions? No? Oh, yeah, right there, Trevor.
Who was your hard money lender for the Maynard?
Asset-based lending. So they're actually one of the sponsors at this meetup.
Chadwick?
Yep, Mike Chadwick. Good guy. Yep. And with John's experience, we got 85% loan to value on that, so I was happy. We're only putting 15% down, and the lender is financing 85% of the purchase price and 100% of the rehab.
Should push them for 90.
Yeah, well, next time I will. I'll tell him John told me you'll make exceptions. All right, thanks guys. Oh, sorry, right there.
So for the rehab project,
Yes.
you get a local quote, like 3 quotes for each small job, divided into small job, or you get general contract and.
So for the 203K, I use a general contractor, and I got 2 quotes. Is generally what I do. For the Maynard one, I just used a contractor that's on my business, my team, which is John, who's standing to your left, and he's taking care of that. So he's the one as a contractor that's getting quotes from subcontractors. So, yeah, I essentially tell him the quotes need to be lower, the quotes need to be lower. But he's the one that's doing the quoting process for the Maynard flip. And I guess I could help with that in theory. The rest of the team could help with that, but it's usually the GC or project manager that's doing stuff like that. Okay. Thank you so much, guys. I definitely went over time. I appreciate everybody for paying attention. And if you want to come talk to me after, you know how to find me. I'll be here.
Thank you, Ryan. You did not go over time. There's enough time. For anyone that this is your first time, we always have a slide at the end.